On paper, the year 2000 gave us another compact hatchback. Small, efficient, nothing extraordinary. But the Audi A2 was no ordinary car. This was a machine that dared to rewrite the rulebook. Built almost entirely from aluminum, it wasn't just futuristic, it was decades ahead of its time. And yet, the world wasn't ready. Stay with me until the end, because the A2 hides one secret design choice that would later inspire some of the world's most revolutionary cars. A feature so overlooked at the time, yet so vital today. It could change the way you think about efficiency and innovation forever. When Audi introduced the A2 in 1999 for the 2000 model year, they weren't simply releasing a car. They were staging a bold experiment. While competitors like Volkswagen, Peugeot, and Ford were selling budget hatchbacks made from steel, Audi decided to gamble on something entirely different. A compact luxury car designed not around compromise, but around the future. The body itself was the revolution. Instead of the usual heavy steel, Audi engineers turned to the aluminum space frame, a structure that had only been used in their flagship A8 luxury sedan. Applying this expensive technology to a small hatchback was almost unthinkable. It cut the weight dramatically, down to just 895 kilograms in its lightest form. To put that in perspective, that's lighter than many city cars today, even with all the modern obsession with efficiency. And yet, despite its featherweight body, the A2 wasn't fragile. Its aluminum skeleton was both strong and corrosion-resistant, giving it a futuristic sheen. Walk around it, and you'd notice smooth curves, a teardrop silhouette designed in the wind tunnel, and details that seemed almost alien compared to its boxy rivals. The drag coefficient? Just 0.25. For context, that's still impressive even by modern EV standards. But here's the twist you didn't see coming. This wasn't designed for beauty alone. Every curve, every line, every panel was engineered for one thing: efficiency. Audi didn't want you to simply drive a car. They wanted you to drive the future. Step inside, and the surprises continued. From the outside, the A2 looked like a tight, compact hatch. But open the doors, and you'd find a cabin designed with space in mind. The high roofline created headroom that rivaled sedans a class above. The clever packaging of the seats and floor gave passengers more legroom than you'd expect. Suddenly, this small car felt airy, spacious, almost lounge-like. Audi proved that compact didn't have to mean cramped. And just when you think the innovation stops, there's another layer: the service hatch. At the front of the A2 was a panel that flipped down, giving you access to the washer fluid, oil dipstick, and other essentials without needing to open the hood. It sounds trivial today, but back then, it was an odd, futuristic touch, almost like Audi was experimenting with how cars could be serviced differently. Of course, Audi didn't position the A2 as a budget-friendly commuter. No, that wasn't their style. They dared to market it as a premium compact, a contradiction in itself. Imagine telling customers at the turn of the millennium that they could pay luxury money for a hatchback. It was a radical move. And yet, it was rooted in Audi's DNA. To blur boundaries, to challenge definitions, to elevate the everyday. But here's the paradox. For all its forward-thinking brilliance, the A2 was a misunderstood car. Many buyers couldn't quite grasp why a small hatchback carried such a high price tag. They saw the aluminum body as an oddity, not an achievement. They saw the aerodynamic curves as quirky, not beautiful. And while its efficiency was unmatched, the world at that time wasn't desperate for fuel savings the way we are today. Yet, in hindsight, the A2 looks prophetic. Consider the modern obsession with lightweighting, with aerodynamics, with premium compact EVs. Tesla, BMW's i3, even Audi's own e-tron lineup, they all owe a silent debt to the A2. It was the spark that lit a fire too soon, a car that existed ahead of its audience. And just when you think it can't surprise you anymore, remember this. In its most efficient variant, the A2 3L, it could achieve an astonishing 3 liters of fuel per 100 kilometers, or about 78 miles per gallon, in the year 2000. That's not just efficient. That's science fiction made real. This was more than design, more than innovation. This was a message, a glimpse of a future where cars would need to be lighter, sleeker, and smarter to survive. But design was only the beginning, Because the true test of the Audi A2 wasn't how it looked or how it was built. It was how it performed on the road. And that's where the story takes an even sharper turn. When you lifted the hood of the Audi A2, you didn't find a roaring V8 or a turbocharged beast. Instead, you found engines so small they looked almost fragile. But here's the paradox. Those tiny power plants carried the A2 into legend, not for speed, but for a kind of efficiency the world had never seen. And stay with me, because one variant of the A2 would go on to deliver fuel economy figures so shocking, it forced rival engineers to question if Audi had unlocked the impossible. A number so low, so efficient, that even today it sounds like science fiction. Audi's philosophy with the A2 was never about brute force. It was about intelligence, about doing more with less. And under the hood, that philosophy became clear. Buyers had a choice of engines: a humble 1.4-liter petrol, a slightly more advanced 1.6-liter FSI petrol, the first direct-injection gasoline engine Audi offered in a production car, and a 1.4-liter TDI diesel. On paper, these numbers didn't look like much. 90 horsepower here, 75 there. Hardly the kind of stats that would set hearts racing. But here's the twist. Because of the car's aluminum space frame and featherweight body, even these modest engines felt alive. In a world where small cars often struggled under their own weight, the A2 turned physics into its ally. Every drop of fuel carried it further. Every push of the pedal felt sharper than the spec sheet suggested. The diesel, in particular, became a legend. That 1.4 TDI engine, paired with the A2's streamlined body, delivered fuel economy numbers that shattered expectations. Drivers reported over 60 miles per gallon, sometimes even more than 70 in real-world conditions. To put that into perspective, at the dawn of the new millennium, many family sedans were struggling to achieve half that figure. And just when you think that's impressive, here comes the true game-changer, the A2 3L, a special variant designed with one obsessive goal: achieving 3 liters of fuel consumption per 100 kilometers. That's roughly 78 miles per gallon. In 2001, at a time when eco-friendly cars were barely a concept, Audi had created one of the most fuel-efficient production cars the world had ever seen. But this wasn't just about numbers. It was about how it felt to drive, slide behind the wheel, and the engines never begged you to race. They invited you to glide, to flow with traffic in a way that felt calm, composed, and deliberate. The petrol engines offered smoothness for city commutes, while the diesel brought torque that made highway cruising surprisingly effortless. And yet, here's the paradox. Audi never marketed the A2 as a sluggish ecobox. Quite the opposite. They framed it as a premium compact, capable of long-distance journeys, with the same refinement you'd expect from larger Audis. And in many ways, it delivered. The quiet hum of the diesel at cruising speed, the sharp response of the lightweight chassis on winding roads. It wasn't fast, but it was confident. Competitors at the time, like the Volkswagen Polo, Ford Fiesta, and Peugeot 206, were built cheap and sold cheap. Their engines were designed only for affordability. But the A2 dared to be different. It was a compact hatchback with engineering precision, normally reserved for luxury sedans. And this made it both brilliant and misunderstood. Because here's the problem. Buyers in the early 2000s didn't want to pay luxury prices for small engines, no matter how efficient. To them, performance meant horsepower, speed, the roar of acceleration. And the A2 didn't give them that. Instead, it offered something subtler, something visionary, a whisper instead of a shout. But then, the test drives revealed something no one expected. Drivers reported a unique sensation: lightness. The A2 responded eagerly to steering inputs, darting through city streets with an agility few rivals could match. The combination of a small engine and a featherweight body didn't make it slow. It made it nimble, almost playful. And this is where the A2's true genius becomes clear. It wasn't about being the fastest. It was about being the smartest. It was a car that anticipated the world we live in today, where efficiency, economy, and innovation matter just as much, if not more, than sheer speed. Think about it. In an era where gas was cheap and climate change wasn't a headline, Audi gave us a car that could do nearly 80 miles per gallon. They gave us direct injection petrol engines before they became the industry standard. They gave us a lightweight construction that even modern manufacturers struggle to replicate affordably. The A2's engines were never about thrills. They were about foresight, about asking the uncomfortable question. What if performance isn't measured in horsepower, but in endurance, and how far you can go on less? And just when you think Audi had reached the limits of innovation with its engines, the story takes another twist, because how the A2 felt inside, how it wrapped its passengers in both practicality and luxury, was unlike anything in its class. And that's where the real surprise lies. The Audi A2 wasn't supposed to fail. It was engineered to be revolutionary, efficient, futuristic, unstoppable. And yet, when it finally reached the showroom, the unthinkable happened. Buyers turned their backs. What went wrong? And how did a car once dismissed as a failure become a cult legend decades later? Stay with me, because one overlooked detail about the A2's market story explains why today's hybrids and EVs exist in the first place. Without this misunderstood hatchback, entire chapters of modern automotive history might never have been written. The year was 2000. The automotive world was at a crossroads. Fuel prices were relatively low, environmental concerns were still whispers, and the idea of a premium, eco-friendly compact seemed almost absurd. Consumers wanted power, space, familiarity. Audi, however, wanted to change the narrative. They poured millions into the A2, equipping it with lightweight aluminum construction, futuristic aerodynamics, and engines that could stretch every drop of fuel. It was bold, visionary. But here's the twist. Innovation came at a cost. The production process for that aluminum space frame was incredibly expensive, driving the retail price far higher than competing hatchbacks from Ford, Peugeot, or Volkswagen. Imagine walking into a dealership back then. On one side, a practical Ford Fiesta for thousands less. On the other, a compact Audi A2 priced closer to entry-level sedans. Buyers couldn't justify it. To them, it looked like a small car with a big price tag, and that contradiction killed sales before the A2 had a chance to prove itself. And yet, beneath that commercial disappointment lay something extraordinary. Because while most buyers walked away, a small group of enthusiasts recognized what Audi had created. They saw it not as a hatchback, but as a glimpse of the future. A car that wasn't chasing trends, but predicting them. But here's the twist you didn't see coming. Many of the A2's so-called failures became its legacy. Its aerodynamic design, once mocked, now looks prophetic in an era where every EV is shaped like a rolling wind tunnel. Its lightweight aluminum body, dismissed as unnecessary, anticipated the modern obsession with reducing weight for efficiency. Even its eco-focused diesel variant, the A2 3L, was a direct ancestor to the ultra-efficient hybrids and electric vehicles that dominate headlines today. At the time, though, Audi's gamble was a bitter pill. Production was costly, profit margin slim, and demand far below expectations. After just 5 years, Audi pulled the plug. The A2 disappeared from showrooms in 2005. On paper, it was a failure, a miscalculation, a car that couldn't find its audience. But then something unexpected happened. As the years passed, the world caught up to the A2. Rising fuel costs, growing environmental awareness, and the dawn of hybrid technology made people look back at this odd little Audi with fresh eyes. Suddenly, its innovations didn't seem eccentric, they seemed visionary. Collectors began to take notice. Forums and enthusiast clubs grew. Owners praised the durability of the aluminum body, which resisted rust even after decades. Mechanics admired the engineering precision, and drivers cherished the fuel economy that still embarrassed newer cars. The A2 transformed from a misunderstood product into a cult classic. Today, it holds a unique place in automotive history, not because it sold millions, but because it dared to ask questions no one else was asking at the time. What if a small car could be luxurious? What if efficiency could be premium? What if the future demanded less, not more? And just when you think its influence is limited, look closer. The BMW i3, with its lightweight construction and eco-premium positioning, echoes the A2's philosophy. Tesla's focus on aerodynamics over aggression? That's the A2 spirit, alive in a new form. Even Audi's own e-tron models draw from the lessons learned in Ingolstadt 2 decades earlier. So, was the A2 a failure? Financially, yes. But historically? Absolutely not. It was the kind of car that burns bright, fades quickly, and leaves behind a legacy larger than its sales sheet. And just when you think the story of the A2 is finished, there's one more twist. The way this car is remembered today isn't just about technology or efficiency. It's about the passion of a community that refuses to let its legacy die. And that's where our journey goes next.